Welcome to the Therapist Thrival Guide. My name is Miranda, and this is Letisha. And today we are talking about the science of gratitude.
Yeah.
This is a topic that I was recently nerding out about because, Thanksgiving was coming up. And if you don't know this, I actually do a lot of the social media content and work with a lot of our clinicians that create social media content for Ellie. And so I was digging into just like gratitude. And I didn't want to just be like, Happy Thanksgiving, or like, I don't know. I feel like some of that stuff is just kind of overdone. And it's so easy to be like, gratitude is overdone. Sure, yes, we should be grateful. Like, yeah, whatever, but hear me out. I was reading research studies that were so cool on this topic. And so then I messaged Letisha and was like, we should do a podcast episode on this. And Letisha is always game for podcast episodes. So she's the perfect person to bring on. Do you want to actually introduce yourself? I guess she's been on this. You've been on here so many times, and I can link to some of the other podcast episodes you've done in the past. But why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Okay, I'm Letisha. I'm a mental health practitioner here at Ellie, and I am on track for my LPCC. So hopefully be licensed very soon. But like Miranda said, I do love podcasts. I love having great conversations about things. And gratitude is definitely one that when you sent me the article, I was like, oh, like I know about gratitude and I understand it, but like the science behind it is so interesting.
Yeah. And I think this episode can be helpful for, I want to talk about how therapists can be infusing gratitude into their sessions right now. But I also want to just talk about like ourselves and how we're talking about gratitude. And I think this could be helpful for even clients to listen to, or people who aren't therapists that are just curious about some of the science. And so I guess welcome if you're not a therapist. This is what therapists talk about.
Right.
So I wanted to start out this podcast episode talking about a specific article and some of the research that it talked about. Do you think I should just pull up the article, or should we just like paraphrase? Okay, cool.
Yeah, let's pull it up.
Let's do that. The amount of times I try to paraphrase things on this podcast and then just like butcher them, it's fine. So I'll put the link in the description below, but this article is called The Science of Gratitude, and it's from mindful.org. And what I liked about this one is that they actually cite a lot of the different research studies and the sources that they were finding. And so then I was able to actually like go back to those research studies and read more. But this article talks about a couple of different research studies, and they talked about how for the first research study, they had 300 adults that were university students seeking counseling, and they had a randomized group write a gratitude each week for 3 weeks. And the gratitude group reported significantly better mental health than the control group. And then even 12 weeks after that exercise. So it was like they did those for 3 weeks, and then even 3 months later, their mental health was still better, which is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
And then another study talked about kind of the 3 good things, where it's a gratitude writing practice where you are writing down 3 good things that happened in your day, and identified the causes of those good things. And the people who did that were significantly happier, less depressed, even 6 months after the study ended.
Yeah.
So yes, gratitude might feel a little bit woo-woo. Yes, you might roll your eyes if somebody brings up gratitude, or if your mom makes you say what you're thankful for around the dinner table or something. But it's actually so good for our mental health. Why do we think it's so good for our mental health?
It's, for me, I think when I was reading the article, what I took away from it is that people focus less on the negative things, right? And the more negative things you exhibit or you focus and zero in on, the more negative that you start to see life. And so when you start to focus on, even though you may have had more negative experiences than positive ones in your day, you get to zero in on the positive things, right? And so then your focus begins more intentional on focusing on your positive things.
Yeah.
Right? So like, example would be like, traffic was really crazy, right? But the positive is you got to where you needed to go, right?
Mhm.
So that's a positive that you can look at in that negative situation. So zeroing in on your positive situations and positive things that happen forces you to focus on positive things.
Mhm.
And the more positive things you focus on, the more you start to realize how valuable and how important your life is and
Mhm.
how unique it is or how important it is to be here and be present.
Yeah. And if you're getting into the habit of practicing gratitude, whether it be that you're writing letters to people who you care about, or maybe you are writing down 3 good things that happened that day, it's almost like you're priming yourself for that too, because you start to think about like, oh, I could add that to my list tonight.
Yep.
Or you start to look for things, or you start to notice gratitude, I think a little bit more than if you aren't actively thinking about it. And I think that also has a big part of it too. And I would argue that, I mean, when you're thinking about, you can't think about multiple things at once. Like, I mean, sometimes it feels like your brain has a lot going on and there's a lot happening, but really you're only able to think about one thing at once. And that's why like spiraling, or if you're having a panic attack, or those different things feel so overwhelming, is because your brain is cycling through a lot of different things that you're thinking about.
It's literally overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's like it's trying to keep up with everything.
Yeah.
But if you are trying to practice gratitude, or like, that's why grounding techniques are so helpful, because you're trying to zero in or think about what is happening in the present moment. And that is distracting you from thinking about all of the things that could be going wrong too.
Right. Yeah. And that's so very true. And when you think about it, like grounding, for example, if you were grounding and then you think about positive things, right? Like you're doing a grounding exercise and then you do a positive on top of that, right? Like, so not only ground yourself, but think about a positive thing that's happened in your life recently or even extended in the past, right? You think about a positive experience that helps you ground and level out, but then it also boosts your endorphins because now you're thinking about positive things. You're thinking about good things that have happened, right? And it zeroes in on that positive thing and negates the negative things that were swirling in your head or overwhelming your head. So I like to think about it like that.
Yeah.
The more positive you think about it, the more positive it becomes, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's life.
Well, and going back to kind of the grounding techniques too, where I actually have seen some people or some therapists talk about like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding skill, where you are thinking about 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can taste, 1 thing you can smell. I think that's what it is. Or maybe it's 2 things you can smell, 1 thing. Anyways, you're going through all of your senses and you're forcing yourself to notice what's around you.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen some therapists talk about like, okay, during this season, or maybe really we could argue any season, doing the same format, but for things that you're grateful for. So like thinking about 5 things you can see that you're grateful for, 4 things that you can, I'm going to make myself go through. It's hard to remember. 4 things you can touch that you're grateful for. You know, all of those different things. And again, like trying to hardwire your brain to see the positive and to notice some of the things that are good in your life and how that can really be powerful. And so I wanted to talk about like, okay, we know that these research studies as well as others show that gratitude practice can help you feel less anxious. It can help you feel less depressed. It can help you get better sleep. It can even improve your health outcomes, like your cardiovascular health, because you're decreasing your blood pressure.
Yeah.
Like there are studies out there that talks about this. It's crazy. And so if you are a therapist who is working with a client that has like improved anxiety, decreased depression, you know, we need SMART goals. So maybe you're saying like decrease PHQ-9 score by 5 points or whatever. But if you have one of those treatment planning goals, I think that if we know that gratitude helps, then I would argue that you should be infusing some gratitude into some of your sessions this year. So what are some ways that we can get our clients to think about gratitude right now?
I definitely think the article spoke a little bit about journaling. And I do think that journaling is very important just in getting your thoughts out of your head.
Yeah.
Especially for people who have high anxiety or people who are in depression, because they're overwhelming thoughts. And even though depression makes people's mood go down, it's still overwhelming. There's overwhelming thoughts and overwhelming expressions. And so those things need to come out of your head. And so writing out those things can help to eliminate some of those overwhelming experiences. But being able to write out positive things forces the brain to reset to a positive state of mind. And the more that you do it, the easier it becomes, and the more frequently you do it.
Yep.
And then you think, oh, this is easy, right? And then you can expound on it, or you can heighten it. So being able to express those thoughts through journaling, I think, is so key. Yeah. And I even encourage some of my clients to just talk things out. It seems very strange when you're first doing it, right?
Especially if you're not a talker.
Yeah. Especially if you're not a talker, right? Or you hold a lot of your emotions in. Talking them out, either in a mirror or, to yourself at the TV, whatever it is, right? Having that dialogue with yourself is vital. And being able to say one thing, right? Like one positive thing about yourself, one positive thing you enjoy, one positive thing that you see in others, those kind of things. And the more
those
you
would be
do
good journaling prompts too.
Exactly. And the more you do that, the more you will be encouraged to do it, right? And the better you'll feel. And the better you feel, the more you want to do something, right? Think about if you're exercising and you go to the gym, and the more you exercise, right? And your body starts feeling better and you start feeling better, right? You might be tired, but you still feel good, right? The more you're going to want to do it.
Yeah.
And so the same thing is with journaling.
Well, and I often say with clients too, if they are, new to journaling, or they're like, I don't know what I would write about. I mean, there are so many good journaling prompts out there. You could quite literally Google journal prompts for anxiety, journal prompts for depression, journal prompts for gratitude, and you'd get so many ideas.
Yep.
But I also like to say one of my go-to introductions to journaling is the mind dump exercise, where I just tell a client, we have a lot going on in our mind right now. And it feels like your backpack is overflowing. Like there's just, it's overflowing. Let's take some of this stuff out. Let's just kind of spread it out and see what we have here. And so oftentimes I'll say, let's grab a pencil, a paper, and I'll set a timer for 3 minutes. And I just want you to write down every single thing that comes to mind. Whatever it be, it could be a bullet pointed list. It could be, things you have to do today, grocery list, what's going on in your mind. Oh, look, I saw a squirrel. It could be literally anything.
Yeah.
And that can be a good introduction to, I'm just getting all of my thoughts on paper. And then, like you said, I think that infusing some of the journal prompts around gratitude can really help you to refocus your mind and to think more positively as well.
Yeah. I also encourage clients who don't like writing to just talk, right? So I will tell them to get a recorder and just record themselves talking.
That's a good idea.
Record their thoughts, record everything that they're hearing or experiencing or feeling for, 5 minutes, right? Yeah. And then all of that stuff is out of their head, because that's the only goal, right? When you're journaling, is to get all of those thoughts that are swirling around in your head, right? And then you can begin to look at the thoughts and you can begin to zero in on the ones that are important, or, you can kind of
prioritize them.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And so that is one of the goals that I think. So when people don't do really well with writing, my husband is a great example of that. I will just tell him to talk, and he's more of a talker. So he'll talk and talk and talk through all of his thoughts. And then we're at a point where now he's calm, and you can feel him calm, and you can feel the easing and, the stress and the anxiety has come down. And now we can actually have the actual conversation that you're wanting to have.
Right.
But just like women do, women are all over the place all the time with their thoughts, right? But women do more talking about it, right, than men do. And so men do the same thing. They have thoughts all over the place, but they don't really do a lot of conversation about it. So being able to just talk all those thoughts out zeroes you down, grounds you so that you can say, this is really what I want to talk about, right?
Sure. So journaling, in various forms, I think is really helpful. The studies talked about writing gratitude letters. And there was one podcast that I'll plug in here too, that it was from the Happiness Lab. It's one of my favorite podcasts. And there's a specific episode that's called, I think it's something like PJ Likes to Gripe.
Oh.
And it's PJ and Alex love to gripe, I think. I'll put it in the description too. But they talk about another research study where they have people write letters of gratitude to someone in their life. They think about someone that they're grateful for, that they're thankful for. They have them write a letter to them, and then they have them hand deliver the letter.
Oh,
and
nice.
They said that that seems kind of scary, but that act of hand delivering it to them, seeing their reaction, it feels like it's gonna be awkward or weird, but it's not. People are actually really, really surprised, and it has a really big impact on them. And even if they didn't deliver the letter, let's say they just went home and they threw the letter away, that still had a lasting impact, a positive impact on them, just writing those things that they were grateful for about a person. And so that's a really easy, that's something that I do regularly with clients of mine. I've done it mostly with kids and teenagers actually, but maybe I should encourage my adult clients to do that this week, where they are, I'll even say let's do this in session. Let's just take a couple minutes. You write a gratitude letter to someone. I'll even write a gratitude letter to someone, and then we can talk about what that was like, and if we're going to deliver it to them. And I mean, research shows that that's something that's super helpful. And like the other research study showed, if you do that every week for 3 weeks, then for those people, it affected them even 3 months later. I think that's so, so cool.
Yeah, because when you think about it, they probably built a habit. Right. And that habit is making things positive in their life. I was going to say, when I was reading the article, I was like, oh, this would be something great to even do for my family that I meet with. Actually, I will be meeting with them Monday night. But that I meet with the family, because their breakdown is communication. And so just being able to say things positively or write a letter to each other would be so
I love that idea for family therapy.
Yeah, and I think that it will be interesting to just kind of see how they respond and see what their if it lights up their face, or they have great things to say about each other that are positive, but they don't ever really say them to each other. And so it would be interesting to see their response.
Very cool. Just this last week, I was meeting with a client who is 8 years old, and we read a book together that's called The Gratitude Jar, which is this really sweet jar, a really sweet book. And it's also available on YouTube with permission of the author. So it's good, and you can share that with some of your clients, and maybe even listen to it in session. It's really more of a kid book, but you listen to it in session, and then after session, he and I created gratitude jars, and we are like, let's try to see how much we can put in here, and let's encourage our families to do this too. And it was really sweet just to be thinking about all the things that we were grateful for. And there's another book called Gratitude is a Superpower, or Gratitude is My Superpower. And that's a super sweet book too. Another, maybe for slightly older kids, but another really good book for introducing the concept of gratitude to some of the kids that you're seeing in therapy. Or if you're a parent or a auntie or anyone, then I think it's a really good way to introduce this concept to important kids in your life, and even just practice some of that with them. I think that take it a step further. Don't just talk about thankfulness. Let's actually do it. I think it's awesome. Other things that people can do to practice gratitude, or even infuse some of this into their sessions.
I'm all about games. I always find games to be important. One actually that I did with my clients is I had them all color and draw a picture, and then they had to score each other. But the way that they scored each other was to say 5 positive things about a picture, or 3 positive things about the picture, or 2 positive things. So, they really, the family really took to, saying positive things about the picture, and they found it to be easier. So that's an option.
Yeah, again, you're practicing looking for good things in something. That's cool.
And so that's a good way to do that.
how are you going to be using gratitude either with clients this season or at home with your kiddos?
Definitely. That article really had me thinking about like what things can I do with my kids that would be more intentional and showing an appreciation for them, and my husband as well. Just saying, incorporating one positive thing at the beginning of the day, and then one positive thing at the end of the day, to really speak to and encourage them, right? Lift them up and make them feel appreciated and loved, is also a part of the gratitude experience. So definitely incorporating that, waking up in the morning and having one or two positive things to say to each one of them. And then before we go to bed, having a couple of positive things to say about them, and being intentional with that, and being intentional to not say the same thing, but to find something different and something new, so that they can have that experience and not become mundane.
Yeah.
Because it can become mundane. You have very great eyes, like saying that over and over again, it gets old, but making it other things would be something that I would do.
Also good for their self-esteem to be like pointing out things that you're grateful for about them.
Yeah.
Or like things that you're thankful for with them. I think you bring up such a good point, Letisha. Like so much of this is modeling. And so like how weird would it be, and maybe some therapists do this, but how weird would it be if I was like in a session with a client and I was like, all right, now I want you to make this craft, or like, I'm just going to watch you, or like, I want you to color. I want you to, and maybe I'm just like a kid therapist. And so that's why this is part of me. But I, like, even with your own kids, it's like, you're doing these things together. You're modeling that you're also looking at for things that you're grateful for. And you're modeling the language of I'm so grateful for this, or I don't know. I think that looking for even the little things. I know it's so easy to be like, I'm so grateful for my house, or I'm so grateful for the sunshine, or something like that. But like, I think there's so much joy and so much gratitude to be found in like the really, really, really small things. Like, I'm really grateful that this morning I got to drink my coffee out of like a mug, and I wasn't drinking it out of like my to-go cup. I got to like warm my hands with it. And oh my gosh, this morning when I was driving to work today, we even talked about this before, but like the drive was so beautiful. It is prime autumn colors in Minnesota. And I just, I was marveling at how beautiful it was. And I think, and I don't know, maybe I'm just like in the habit of looking for things that I'm grateful for right now, because this is something that you and I have talked about, and these are articles we're reading and doing these things. But I hope that for the people that are listening to this episode, you are inspired to think about a couple of things that you're grateful for today and infuse it into your sessions, your conversations with your kids in your life. And hopefully this is inspiring and helpful.
Yeah, I hope so.
Any other last thoughts?
Just be mindful to be grateful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I have one. I am so grateful for all of the listeners of this podcast, because you all, I'm so grateful that because of you, I have the coolest job ever. So very grateful for that.
And I'm grateful that I get to be a part of it.
And
have great conversations.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.